Hey everybody, Gisele Grenier here. So don't be alarmed with everything that I have on the table. This is more just to show you different options. This is a bit of a different type of video. Going to be combining art with jewelry. So I've got a little piece here that I was prototyping, and the idea was to create a landscape and put it into a bezel, and then this is where the prototyping comes in with dry fitting and all that stuff. The cutout I did was too small, so I used micro beads to fill in the edges, and actually it turned out quite nice. But my idea for this one is that I do everything with resin. For my jewelry, I wanted to give you different options of creating wearable art using regular art materials. So the different things that you can use to create that glass-like look on your pieces, whether you're going to be putting it in a bezel or just having the little painting by itself, you need basically the varnishes. So let me just get these here. All right, these are interchangeable. This is great if I can do it outside, otherwise I use this one. These are all from DecoArt, and this is the triple thick. It's a brush on gloss glaze, and it's self-leveling. Now this only works on hard surfaces. It doesn't bend with fabric. That's where you would need to go to something that's a flexible finish. But this is a really, really nice way to get a thick coat on something to look like glass without using resin. The other thing that I have in the containers too big is the actual DecoArt pouring medium. The top coat is the same way. But you can only go about 1/8 of an inch on those to make sure you have a crystal clear finish, because it has to dry. So this is actually a nice choice when you want something thicker, because you could build it up. And then the other one is the liquid glass, which is super nice, but it's only a small bottle, so it can be a little bit cost prohibitive if you're doing something on a larger scale. To give you some examples, I did an experiment on these. So this is one of my Book of Backgrounds pieces. This is triple thick, and I've got a single layer here, and I've got a double layer here. So I built it up. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. I built it up quite thick. That's a triple thick. And this is liquid glass. Single layer, double layer, then a triple layer. Just to show you. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Just to give you different options, but it looks like glass. So the first layer took a few hours to dry, second layer a few hours to dry, and the third layer in here took a little bit longer because it was so many layers. So you can create your artwork and then use one of these finishes to create that glass look. And you just do it in layers if you want to build it up to something thick. So if you're going to do something like 1/4 of an inch thick, just do 3 layers. If you're not worried about doing something super thick, use the Duraclear High Gloss. This is indoor outdoor. Indoor only, indoor outdoor. You can also use the outdoor decoupage medium for DecoArt. So just multiple layers. That's the thing, is that multiple layers. By doing multiple thin, even layers, you're going to get that glass-like appearance. If you attempt to do something super thick, it's going to be cloudy. And I did that experiment with the pouring medium. Nothing fixed that. So let me just put these away over here. And so what we're going to do in this one here is I'm going to show you how I got to here, but I'm going to do this one differently. And you can do these, oh, of course it's not going to come out now. And you can do these with Book of Backgrounds pieces, any type of artwork that you want to create as wearable art. So I've got this bezel here. You can pick these up at Michael's, on Amazon, online places. This is a, it's not a bright silver. It's almost like a titanium style. It's a bit of a gray down silver. I like this. I make my own bezels now. I don't buy them pre-made, but this is easier for this purpose. And you basically just go around, draw an outline, then cut inside, and then just basically size it. And even doing that, I still have a little bit of an edge on it. So for this particular thing, I'm going to paint directly inside here, but it requires a bit of prep work. Also, the color of your paper makes a difference. You can see the differences here. Watercolor paper, 140 pound, nice and stiff. cream colored, and white. So if you're going to be painting something that's going to be more transparent, make sure you choose white. Otherwise, the color of the paper will come through your paint and affect the colors. All right, so, oh, where do I have it? I don't, and of course I don't have it. What you want to do is basically do a light sanding inside, safety glasses, mask if you're using a lot of, if you're doing a bigger piece. You want to do light sanding on here, and then what you want to do is you want to create some tooth. So to create the, when you have the tooth on there, then we can use some gesso to create that base. But what happens if you want to do it with paper and you've got that edge there? And when I did the edge, that's why I tried to use the micro beads to fill it in. You can, once you put the gesso down, you can use a modeling paste on your base first. Come on. And then you can paint it silver, and then you can push this chaos hair, push that down, and that'll help fill in the edges. That's a little bit more work. It's easier just painting inside here. So you can use modeling paste for that. Put that aside. All right, so let me get some sandpaper. I'll do some sanding. We'll prep with gesso, do the painting, and get to the fun stuff of creating the glaze. All right, for the sanding, I'm going to give you a couple of different options as well. You can use sandpaper. You know, sandpaper ranges from 60 grit up to like 20,000 grit. These are the ones I use for my resin, 120 up to 7,000, and they're wet dry. It controls the dust. For metal, you can use something, I wouldn't use something too rough. I would probably go to maybe something like a 800 for that. Grip tools, found these at Princess Auto, great find. They're swabs, and it's 120, 180, 400, and 800 grit, and it's sandpaper on, like, think of like a cotton swab, and you can sand that way, so it's nice for a small piece. And also found these blades. I've also found this at Princess Auto, and they go inside here, and this is great for getting in the corner. I use this for filing down my jewelry, but you can get right in. Listen to this. Oh, you can't hear it. Oh, I had made a, there we go. Joe hates that noise. But you can get right into the corners, which is great for creating that tooth. So whether you use the, you just want to mar it up just to create some tooth, whether you use this or, let's go with 800 grit. And you break off a little piece and just, I don't want to rip this off because it goes on a machine. Safety glasses and a mask if you're going to create a lot of dust. But see how it creates that? You want to get rid of all that shine. It's just going to help the paint stick. That's the key. Get right into the corners. Because we also, if you want to create, oh, you know, I didn't tell you about the waterproofing. If you're going to be creating this as your art, as wearable art, you got to keep in mind waterproofing if you're going to be outside. So, you know, a lot of people say, oh, use any varnish. You can't use any varnish. You have to use indoor, outdoor varnish if you're going to be outside. Because what if you're caught in the rain? What if you get thrown into a swimming pool? What if, you know, what if? So you got to keep all that stuff in mind with the type of finish you use. So the triple thick, the liquid glass is not suitable for outdoor use. So this is where using the high gloss, Duraclear, and decoupage medium for outdoor use, or even the decoupage for the dishwasher is fine. But you can also take the triple thick, put that on there to build up the thickness to save time, then just use the Duraclear high gloss on top of that. There we go. That's a nice finish there. Dry that with a paper towel. Let's put these away. These are also great for sanding the edges. I'll put that away. Over here. So to paint this little seascape, and this little seascape was inspired by my recent trip to the Bahamas, Freeport, and we are going back again. And we're going to go to a different island this time. But I wanted to get in here, and it was when I was swimming with the dolphins, and I was kind of inspired with the color of the water. So I'm going to be looking at creating something turquoisey. So with that, phthalo green blue, phthalo blue, and titanium white. Those are go-to colors for turquoise. You can buy turquoise already mixed up, but you can easily make it yourself. Ultramarine blue, titanium white for the sky, and I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna to create a horizon line. And then you can use silver as well if you need to touch up some areas, or if you want to create a makeshift bezel. Let's say you did out of polymer clay or something, and you can use metallic paint for that. Now for this, I'm using the Decor Media Fluid acrylics because they're much thinner in consistency. If you use tube acrylics, it might be a little harder to get the paint flowing into such a small area. So I'm going to use the gesso right in here, and you can go into something. Now this is just prototyping, but if you're going to be creating these to sell, you take your artwork, like book of backgrounds or whatever artwork you're creating, and you're going to sell them. Go through a proper process of prepping your materials and do it in batches to save you time. Prep your metal and all that stuff depending on what you're using. If you're using polymer clay, it is so much easier because it's already porous. When you're working with metal, you've got to create that tooth for stuff to stick to. And this is actually enough, but you can let it dry, apply another layer, and then build up a few layers if you want to create something smooth depending on what you're painting. So if you're painting a micro portrait, yeah, you'd want a much smoother finish in gesso. But the whole key is if you're doing this as a gift or to sell, on your website or a craft fair or whatever, you've got to make sure the prep is done properly, because you don't want stuff falling out of your pendant, in a couple of months or in a couple of years. All right, so I'm going to hit this with my heat gun just to quickly dry it. Just far away. I don't want the piece to get hot. And then I'll put on a second layer. And what I'm looking for, if I was to basically create this to sell, actually I'm going to do a giveaway on this one. I would want this finish to be opaque. So I'm prototyping for a resin piece. So I figured if I'm going to be prototyping anyways, why not make it into a video and do a giveaway? Here we go. So nice and smooth, like that. And you've got to wait for that gesso to completely dry. So with the colors, so you can choose, and this painting itself is, suitable for a beginner. It's just a couple of the brush strokes that you need to kind of work through. Let's create our turquoise color. And turquoise, oh my god, there's so many different variations of turquoise. What I'm looking for is just a blue that's more on the green side, and that's way too much paint. But I could get a Q-tip or a toothpick and get in there. And white. Now, with the paint, if you don't like the fluidity of paint like this, you can use regular paint, but then just make sure that your white itself is fluid or thinned down. You really only need one to thin stuff down. Just try not to use too much water, because it weakens the strength of the pigment. You can also use gesso, which is totally fine. I'm going to put out all the paint just to show you how fast this is. So this little project, the painting itself, if you want to create something new, the painting itself is super fast. So it does make for a nice, I don't need the silver. It would make for a nice piece to sell or give away, just because of how you can work through it through the process. I think what I'm trying to say is you can work through it fast if you did like an assembly line to create a few pieces. So for brushes, little flat brush, round brush, tiny little round brush, small, and start with the flat brush. I'm going to put white paint on everything. So this is why you could interchange it easily with gesso. Now, if you're painting directly inside your bezel, whether it's metal, polymer, clay, wood, it doesn't matter. If it's got edges, just be a little bit more careful when working the edges so you don't get paint on the top. Now, what I also like to do with my jewelry, this is before, like I've been making jewelry now for about 22 years. And one of the things that I did notice is that when you buy jewelry from the store, like Walmart's and stuff like that, depending on what you're buying, is that sometimes they turn like a rose gold color. I like that. So to replicate that, what you can do is on this, you can sand this outside edge too. And after a while, when you wear it, it'll likely turn that rose gold color. Phthalo blue on the brush with the white paint. Phthalo blue, a little bit of phthalo green, add a bit more white, and you get that beautiful color. Now remember, acrylics dry darker, so I'm creating that value scale here. And with the water, what I want to do is I want to create my horizon line. Do I want more water? Do I want more sky? Do I want... Typically, you don't do it evenly across, but it's a piece of jewelry, so I'm going to start right about here. Hang on, let me just turn this because on an angle for filming. And I'm going to get right in here. And I'm just going to base coat the water with this color. Painting on paper is so much easier. But not for finishing, though. It's harder to finish. And I would typically get a close-up of this, but because I'm constantly moving, I want to keep my eyes on the piece and not on the monitor. Because I can pretty well guarantee I'd be out of camera frame. To get that started. Then, with my brush still being wet, I'm going to come into a darker value. Then go to the bottom. And just fill that in, reducing the pressure. And just darken up the bottom. See what I'm doing? Just kind of like horizontal strokes. Kind of horizontal strokes. Like that. Come in a bit of a darker. Go to the bottom. My grammar is really bad today, isn't it? And zigzag. Not completely covering everything. See there? A bit too much pressure. But that's easy to fix. I'll show you how to fix that. Lighten the pressure as you come up. Now, when you're doing this, do this straight on. I'm on such an angle, and I bet you my water lines are on a bit of an angle. They're not too bad. When you have a bit too much pressure, come in with a lighter value, or even just add a bit more white to your brush. Come back in. And just put that in there. The beauty with the wet on wet painting is that you can just keep going with the paint being wet. But once it gets tacky, you need to stop. So let's just come back in. And it's going to darken up the edges a little bit more. We need dark to show light and light to show dark. So what we need to do is make sure that the paint is dark enough for the waves. Now, although this piece is super small, see? Although this piece is super small, we still want to be able to put some waves in it because, you know, heck, you can't have water without waves, right? Well, you can, but... Now, if you did this as a night scene, doing just the outside edges here with the light here, you could put the moon in here. Put this as a dark sky, put the moon in here, and you create that light in the water. This, to be honest with you, is a project that only takes, just a few minutes to complete. But if I would just stop talking and giving you so many different options, it wouldn't take so long. All right, so just a little bit of white. Come in here and you can use your flat brush to get some lines in there, or better yet, take one of the smaller brushes with white and just touch in with the lightest pressure and just do little. And if you do too much, what do? Go back into the paint and just add a little bit more of that color. But you want to do little X strokes. All right. And then for the sky, basically we're basically replicating the water into the sky, but I'm going to make this one with a little bit more of the ultramarine blue look. So right into that water color, add a little bit of ultramarine blue. And let's see, that's not too bad. And I'm going to start painting up here. Again, you need light to show dark, so I want to make sure that the sky is dark enough to reflect my clouds. I'm going to go into a little bit of white. And I'm just going to blend where the colors meet. So you guys know that when doing this on a canvas, it's these big broad strokes. Well, you can't really do it when you're doing something this small. You see, I'm not going for an overly blended look for this. I'm looking for something much softer. Try to keep the horizon line as straight as possible. I can see a little bit of a gesso line in here. You probably can't see that. See that nice, beautiful texture? One thing that I notice with a lot of students is they try to get everything to be perfect. You're creating handmade art. It's not being manufactured at an assembly line somewhere, who knows where. It's handmade art, and it should look like handmade art. If you want your artwork to look like it was manufactured, then what's the point? There we go. Isn't that beautiful? And so you can let that dry, and if you find that the sky is just a little too light, then you can come in and add another layer in there. But let it dry first because, again, acrylics dry a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, clean my brush, and we'll come back. We'll see if we need to add more paint. If not, we'll start adding our glaze. Now, one thing I didn't add in here, which I forgot, which we can still do, is you can add a horizon line like in here, and this is just taking some of the paint with a little bit of burnt sienna in there. I'm kind of liking the way this is here, but it needs something. This looks like it's a very misty look. Just take a little bit of burnt sienna and just take an existing color. You want to try to match the value. Now I'm going to have to tilt this, and you're just going to work horizontal. Let me just turn it this way. Hopefully you can see that. It just creates something. Now I can make this a little bit higher on this end to make it look like, you know, let's say there's mountains in here. Like that. Make it a little bit darker. It's up to you. Where'd it go? It's up to you how you want to do your horizon line. So a little bit bluer. Okay, just something in there. Okay. And then we gotta work that in there. So I'm gonna take, which everything is dried now, so I'll have to make a little bit more paint. I should have did this wet on wet. Completely forgot. Then come in here. A bit more blue. And just get that in there. Brush is a little bit big. Now the texture that you see in here, you're not going to be able to see that through the coat of triple thick, or the whatever we're going to use to finish that. You won't be able to see it. There we go. Lots of water movement in there. You can see that this one here is much more on the violet side. This one's much more on the green side, but it still didn't dry as dark as I thought it would. So what I'm going to do, with water. Take your round brush, come in, and with a little bit more fluid in there, just come in and glaze right over everything. By glazing, which is a transparent layer, you're not going to lose all the brush work that you did. Make sure you've got right in the edges here. Turn your piece around, make sure you don't have any pieces of metal showing on the edges, and then just make sure you, even if you're going to make that stroke this way, make sure you come back out this way. So working on paper is a little bit easier, you know, doing it this way is easier than working on here. The finishing part is a little bit harder because if it doesn't quite fit in perfectly, then that's where it can kind of get mucky. And then a little bit of white. And just use little X strokes. Now the other thing I have, and I'll be able to bring this down. You probably can't see. I've got this light here, this magnifier. And actually, let me just turn that. I use this for my jewelry. Now I don't know what it's going to do with the camera. I don't know if you can see. I'm trying to figure, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. No, it's too the reflection. How about if I just did that? So you can see much on a much larger scale, but then you've got the lights. I've got the video lights here, and the video lights here. Oh, that's a really yellow light, isn't it? I'll have to get Joe to look at that. But you can also, you know, working something small, use a magnifier on this. Let me just get this out of the way. And that's what I have to do. You know, my glasses are fairly new, but you know, it's part of getting older. I'm totally okay with that. There we are. Okie dokie. So, just do another final inspection. Final inspection. So when you're ready to do your glazing, choose how you're going to do it. It being dry, what I'm going to do is just show you. This one here is done with the triple thick. This one here I'm going to do with the liquid glass. So I'm going to hit this again. Now we already know, where's my pieces? Oh my goodness. We already know that the triple thick and the liquid glass basically both look the same. The liquid glass is a little bit easier to use because the triple thick, you kind of have to brush it on a bit. Don't use the spray on something like this because you'll get it everywhere. But if you're doing it like this, then you can use the spray. Just follow the directions for safety. And DecoArt changed the bottles so they're squeezable. Okay, so being dry. And then what I'm going to do is start in the middle. And how you put this on is completely up to you. You can go in a rotation. You can go, you know, any way you want. And also, if your room is super cold, my room is fairly cool, this will take longer to dry. So as you work that around, it's going to level out beautifully and it's going to look like glass. Now, right now, oh, Joe's here. Right now, it looks really cloudy, but it will dry crystal clear. so now all you need to do basically is, before it dries, I had to take my glasses off to as close up because that light you won't be able to see. I'm just going along the edges to kind of clean up any markings. Now the liquid glass is a much thicker application, so what's going to be interesting with this is it going to dry clear being this thick? Whereas with the triple thick, I used 3 coats and there's still a lip here. This one here goes almost to the top, but you can see how well it leveled out. And if you have little holes, you know, little pockets, you can still rotate that around. Oh, I found some paint here. I went a little too close to the side, which is not a big deal, to be honest, because nobody's going to be, you know, this far from, you know, looking at the piece. I'm just making sure that it's all nice and level. And at this point now, we let it dry. So with this one here, I'm thinking, oh, a couple days this thick. Tip, now that I've seen, because this is the first time I've done it this way, now that I've done it like this, one tip I would do is take the liquid glass, go about halfway the size of the circle, let it level out, and then maybe use a Q-tip to try to, or a toothpick to kind of push it out so it's a much thinner level, and then come back with another layer. But this is a good experiment to see if this is going to work, being this thick. I know on when I was doing it in my mixed media, it does work. So we'll have to see. All right, so I will come back in a couple of days, or when this is dry, to see what it looks like. So there we go. This is the one that we did. I'm just going to go under here and just show you how clear that is. Nice and shiny. So it took 4 days for this to dry clear, like a total. I had to let each layer dry about a day to a day and a half. The last layer was a day and a half, but look how beautiful that is. So you can tell just from the difference in colors, this is more green, this is more blue. And with the micro beads added here, I'm not sure I even like that anymore. Now there is quite a lip here, so to finish this, I may just come back in and just put some more. This one I did with the liquid glass. Put some liquid glass in here, and no, actually I lied. Did this one with liquid glass, this one with triple thick, and I may just come back and just fill it in some more. So this one turned out really nice. Now this one here, I got close. I went right to the lip, and then when I realized how high I was, I went, oh, it's gonna drip over, but it didn't. It didn't. The whole key is with the liquid glass, as you put it on, it has to level out. Same thing with the triple thick. You got to put it on, let it level out before adding any more. And the key is the thin layers. So that's about it. So now the only thing left to do with this, because liquid glass and triple thick are not waterproof, you can come back and apply a layer of Duraclear high gloss varnish, or the decoupage outdoor medium, or the dishwasher medium, to protect this. But you know, we're talking about submerging it in water, so you know, if you're in the rain a little bit, just it's no big deal, but just make sure that you don't go swimming with it. Alright, so there you go. All I gotta do is pop it on a chain and it's ready to go. I hope you got some ideas out of this, what you can do with your pieces. In another video that will be coming up, I'll be showing you how to make these types of pieces without even using a bezel, where you can just take, let's say, a book of backgrounds piece done on 140 up to 300 pound watercolor paper, and how you can actually make a pendant out of existing artwork. So you'll have to wait and join me for that one. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That way you won't miss out on anything, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. So until I see you next time, stay inspired.